everybody, welcome back to Radius Academy's course on earning the buyer's loyalty. This is part 3, and we're going to be talking about building the relationship and rapport with the buyer, believing in and providing value, and earning their loyalty every day. My name is Stacy Max. I don't know if you use a buyer-broker agreement where you are, but in New York City, in my experience, agents typically don't use agreements where buyers sign a contract to commit themselves to an agent. In my 23 years, I've seen these agreements only a handful of times. I believe that if you are a killer agent, which we talked about in part 1, you don't need a buyer to sign a contract. If you do, that's fine. I'm not telling you not to. I'm just saying you don't need to. If you do meet their needs with confidence and action, and if you get them to like you. A side note, I believe residential real estate is very personal. For us, it's business. This is what we do for a living. But I think for our clients, it's very personal. And if you earn their business every day, then they will choose you every single day. We ended part 2 talking about valuing the buyer's agent. The first thing I want to say is never believe that a successful real estate agent is only a listing agent, that you have to be a listing agent only in order to be successful. Don't feed into that narrative because it isn't true and it isn't good for our industry. There is real value in representing buyers. Remember that they need you. But first, you have to believe it. Do you believe it? You have to be authentic and you have to believe in what you sell. Once you believe in your value, you have to teach the buyers to value you. How do you do that? It's simple. Provide value. We're going to talk about that. So don't roll your eyes, but I always start by saying that you have to give them goodies. If you meet them in person, bring them a folder of information and value. If you can't meet them in person because we're in a pandemic, to start, email it to them. That's using your technology. This is what you want to put in your folder of value. A buyer's guide. Most firms have a buyer's guide, but I'm sure they're available all over the internet if you look. You want to include any testimonials about you, any press about you, your favorite attorneys, your favorite lenders mortgage rates, and closing costs. That's incredibly helpful for them to consider. You want to include neighborhood information, a market report, and any other information that you think is interesting. And you want to put it all in a folder with your business card. Now you want to be prepared, research, and know the market that you're working in. Listen to what the buyer says that they're looking for in a property. Feed it back to them so they know you're listening. So you said to me you're interested in a 2-bedroom apartment with this amount of square footage and an open kitchen? I understand. Talk to them about the compromises that they might consider that would affect price. And we'll talk more about this as we go. For example, in New York City, the variables affecting price are location, building, neighborhood, amenities, view, condition, apartment style, size, and bedroom. So what are the variables in your area that affect price? And those are the things that your buyer can consider compromising on to be successful finding the other things that they're looking for. So what are the variables that your buyers might look for? And I'm just going to name some because I'm sure it's different for every area where you are. You might be looking for a house that's closer to the park with a lower price, lower taxes, a better view, a larger lot, better condition, open floor plan, more square feet. What else? Maybe a garage. Maybe you have a buyer who's looking for a bigger garage. These are the things that you need to be aware of that your buyer is looking for. Now that you think you know what they want or what they think they want, you start showing them property. You have to get them out looking at property. Don't get into what I think is a bad habit of emailing them listings for their approval before you start making appointments to show them the properties. Because it's too hard to develop a relationship personally with a buyer over email. And I've learned that they don't give you good feedback. You never really learn why they're rejecting the listings that you send them. And they're rejecting listings simply based on what's on their checklist. So part of the process of working with a buyer to build a relationship, but also to actually get them to a place where they find the right property or they think they find the right property, is about their education. They have to learn what they're actually going to be able to find in their price range and choose their own compromises. Everyone compromises, even on HGTV. So while you're talking with them about what they want and start getting to know them while you're looking at property, you have to build rapport. This is more abstract, and it happens at the same time as you're showing them property. Ask them about themselves. Get them to invest time in you talking to you. Learn about their goals, their who, what, when, where, why. So you can then refer back to their goals later and make them feel like you're their friend and you understand them. And I don't mean being sneaky. That's horrible. We talked about authenticity already. I mean really being their friend and get them to be yours. An expression that I often use is accelerate the friendship. Maybe send them a friend request on Facebook, and then you can get to know them a little personally. They're outside of looking for houses, life, and they can get to know your life. Talk about social media, but I'll give you an example. If you start to look on social media like you are actually a working, successful real estate agent, people, your friends on Facebook or whatever social media outlet you're using, will start to think of you that way. And if you post a photo of a beautiful house that you just showed today with a picture of your buyers and tag them, or maybe you're successful selling them a house and you tag them with a picture holding up their key and say, "Congratulations, Mary and Joe Smith, on their purchase of their new house," what happens when you tag them? The post goes in front of their network. And now everyone in their network now thinks of you as the broker who was successful selling Mary and Joe Smith their new house. That's how social media works. And remember, I'll say it a lot, they have to like you. So you have to be interesting and likable. So you have to have a life outside of real estate. Your social media can't be a big giant commercial. It has to be you being a very interesting person who happens to be a successful working real estate agent. So before you say it, I know, obviously, again, this is difficult to do when we're in a pandemic where you can't meet your buyers in person. Then again, you have to use your technology to get to know them and vice versa. Do not just send emails, because then you're a name in print and nobody knows who you are and your face and anything about you personally. Maybe set up a Zoom coffee date where you can have coffee, see each other's faces, and talk about goals and talk about listings and get to know each other. That's what you have to actually spend time on. It's very important when it comes to building rapport and earning loyalty. And set up virtual tours if that's the only way to get them to start to learn. They have to start looking at property so they can learn what's available, so that you can learn from them what's really important. Again, you have to get real feedback and have the same discussions you would have if you were really with them looking at property. Because if you're sending them virtual tours but you're not getting any feedback, you're not going to make any progress. That's incredibly important. Watch the way they look at the properties. I'll give you an example. And again, it's hard to do in a pandemic when you're sending them a virtual tour. I understand. And I don't have a magic solution other than we have to all get better at this, because this is going to be the trend for real estate in the future. But when you are with them looking at property, watch the way they look. And this is going to tell you a whole lot more than they can actually tell you in words. So maybe you go into a property. They told you that the kitchen was the most important thing. They needed to have a renovated chef's kitchen. Fine. Nobody's going to argue with whatever their needs are. But you go into the property, and rather than look at this incredible, spectacular kitchen, they beeline to the windows to start looking out at the view. This is going to tell you that maybe the view is more important than the renovated kitchen, and you're going to learn quite a bit about them from that experience. So now you're getting feedback, and you're going to repeat it back to them so that they know you heard them. Repeat it the next time. Repeat it the next time. And when you're in another property that maybe doesn't have what they said they wanted, you're going to say, I see that this apartment, this house doesn't have that renovated kitchen, but it does have that beautiful view that I think you also want. And get them to feed that back. And they're going to be impressed that you remembered or noticed how important that other thing is to them too. And they're going to start to learn about compromises. So while you're giving them room to find the compromises that you're always talking about, you're never applying pressure, because I would never judge what property, what features in a property are important to a particular buyer. Whatever is important to them is totally fine with me, and I understand. But I'm always going to offer the compromises. So, for example, if you were in New York City and you wanted to live in Greenwich Village like I did, but everything is too expensive and too small, and the buyer starts to say, look, everything we're looking at is too small. You can say, well, you know, if we considered East 17th Street or Chelsea, we might find more space, or we might find a property at a lower price. And you let them get ready to make that decision. If you don't, they might just buy something on East 17th Street from a different agent because they're going to be too embarrassed to say that they were wrong. So this is really important. So now you're working with a buyer, and the buyer isn't having any success finding anything that they want, and you're doing your best. A solution that I've learned is that if you get stuck with the buyer, invite them into the office or meet them at a Starbucks with a computer, with your laptop, or have a Zoom conversation where you're talking about searching, and you do a search in your MLS together. And the buyer is going to think that you're showing them something special that they don't get to see on their own. And you have the opportunity not only of speeding up their education, but showing off everything that you know about all of these listings. You do the search together of what they want in their price point, and you show them the results. So they're going to learn, first of all, that you're showing everything that's on the market, even from other brokers. And they're going to trust you. And you're also going to, like I said, speed up their education. You're going to say, I've seen this house has this. I've seen this house doesn't have this. And you pick and choose together what are the properties that you're going to see, so that the buyer is then invested in your choices. And believe it or not, you're going to be more likely, I know it may be subconscious, you're going to be more likely to have success. Always no pressure. Once they start to feel pressure, they're not going to trust you anymore, because they're going to think that you selling in a property is more important to you than finding the right place for them. You agree? I'm sure you do. Okay, now always follow up. Never end an appointment without a plan for what you're going to do next. Never say, thank you for meeting me, goodbye, and plan on calling them tomorrow. It's never a good idea. You always want to have a plan. Before you say goodbye, you always want to have a plan for what's going to happen next. This is going to provide continuity within your relationship with these buyers. Never wait for them to call you. You have to be the salesperson. We're the salesperson. Don't ever be afraid to call them. I've had agents say to me that they don't want to call their buyers. Their buyers are too busy at work. When the buyer is looking for a new house, you, as the buyer's agent, are the most important person to them in the entire world. You should never be afraid to call them. Don't be too meek. You are the salesperson. Don't you think? Okay, come back for part 4. We're going to talk about the specific challenges and best practices when you're working with buyers who are strangers or paid leads. Paid leads are even less than strangers. So thank you for coming, and I will see you later.